Alrighty, so let's start because it is time to start. And I just handed you all a study guide, so I want you to pull out your study guide and look at it. Those of you at home, same thing, pull out your study guide. It has bullet points and then it has words underneath. So let me explain this to you. Okay, you have a test on Wednesday. It's an in-class test. And this is actually the longest test we've had this year. It has a lot of material on it. I hope you've been studying. Yes, you did some studying over your mini break, which was not a break from homework, but this was mostly your history homework. So the test is on what's in your study guide. We'll go over it in a minute. I'm going to go over the study guide. 6th graders only are allowed to write their discussion question at home. The rest of you have to do it in class. You, 7th and 8th graders, have a second discussion question as well. So it's a lot. Come ready to go. Gear up for Wednesday. I've already posted the note card spreadsheet on Google Classroom. It was posted on the 5th of March, so it's been there for a while. It'll still be there when you go look for it if you need it. And just looking forward, there's a math quiz coming up on a week from today, Monday. We'll go over that in just a minute too. So let's look at your study guide. Look at the study guide, and you'll notice at the top part, those 4 bullet points are the exact same as what I posted on the homework a week ago. Those 4 bullet points are important, and I'm going to have you lay hold of those papers in just a minute. But note cards, these 4 worksheets. The next thing, and I want to talk about this, and we'll go back to those. Discussion question. There is a posted ahead of time discussion question, so you know to prepare for it. For this discussion question, you're going to need to use those 2 Roman Republic and U.S. Republic worksheets. One was hand drawn by me. The other one had the arrows on it. We'll pull them out in just a minute, but let me read you the question. Here's the question. Checks and balances are at the heart of a healthy republic. Let me pause and say, that is the topic sentence of my question to you. You need to start your response with a topic sentence. It is fine with me if you want to use my topic sentence. I am modeling for you how to begin your response. This is the big idea. Checks and balances are at the heart of a healthy republic. You can also write it differently. You can write it in your own words, but you don't even have to. You do have to start with a topic sentence, though, and I have laid it out for you right there. So let's go on. What checks and balances did the Romans have in their political system? Be specific. How does the United States also have checks and balances in its political system? Specifically tell how each of the branches of government check each other. That's the worksheet with all the arrows on it that are pointing both directions. That's 3 branches of government. They all check and balance each other. That's what that is asking about. This next bit is the conclusion of your discussion question. Read it along with me. People often say that the government doesn't get enough done or is so slow to accomplish anything. How might the processes that slow down our government also help keep it healthy? All right, so let me pause first on the structure. That should be your concluding sentence in your paragraph. Answering that will conclude it for you. Now, let's go back, and I want to ask you if you can answer that for me. I want you to think out loud right now. Have you ever heard somebody say, the government takes so long to get things done? Have you ever heard this? the government's really slow. In fact, it seems like they just practically get nothing done. Have you ever heard that as a complaint? Yes or no? You have heard that? Okay. How is it possible that the very things that slow our government down could also be the things that make it healthier? What thoughts do you have? Yeah.
So like laws, they can actually pass laws not helping country instead of just bad laws.
So slowing it down makes them have to talk back and forth and come up with a law they agree on. Okay. Ben.
They can like make better decisions because they have time to like discuss and like all agree.
Okay. Slowing it down could give you more time for that. What else? What think about the checks and balances and how it makes things slow, but it also might make things healthy. What else? One of the main things that the checks and balances do is that it prevents people who are really extreme from getting their thing across, right? It's all lovely and nice and fine if you think, but I like that law, but I like that person, I voted for him. But it's not best for the country for really extreme solutions to get forced into law really quickly. Like you might think like if you're on that team, like, yeah, I'm team this. It might feel good, but what happens when it's working against you? All of a sudden it feels tragic. The checks and balances slow down the process. Lots of different ways. A bill doesn't even get voted on until it's been looked at in a committee. It has to get out of the committee, let's say like a military committee, a defense committee, has to all together, people from all political parties has to agree on something, even to send it to get voted on by the House of Representatives. And then it has to get voted on by the Senate. And that's not the end of the checks and balances. At this point, even if the Senate and the House agree on a bill, what else has to happen to it? Yeah, the president has to sign it and he can veto it. And even if the president signs it and it goes into law, what's the other check and balance to that law? What's the third branch? No, the third branch, you have the president, you have Congress, and then what's the third one? Judicial. How does the judicial branch check and balance a law?
Can tell if it's unconstitutional.
Correct. The Supreme Court can say that law that you passed, that the president signed, nope, it cannot be law because it goes against the Constitution. There's so many different ways to check things. It makes stuff really slow. But it works. It works. Sometimes presidents do things that are called executive orders. A lot of times their executive orders are like, we're going to celebrate Thanksgiving, woohoo. But increasingly in recent years, presidents have been using those executive orders to do things that Congress wasn't doing. We're going to executive order, I'm going to get something done with immigration by writing executive order. With executive order, I'm going to say college students who have taken out a lot of money on their college loans don't have to pay it back. Do you guys know what happened to that last one? When President Biden signed an executive order that said some large number of college students weren't going to have to pay back their loans. Anybody have any idea what happened? Not the Senate. The Senate doesn't have veto power over the president. You're sort of on the right vein. In the right.
Judicial?
Yeah, the Supreme Court disallowed it and said that's not constitutional. So there's a check and a balance to all of it. Lest we all sit around in fear. Don't listen to the fear mongers. We all sit around in fear. Oh no, the world is going to end if my candidate doesn't make it in. Our republic is healthy because we have the checks and balances. That is where the health of our government is seen. Does that make sense to you guys? Yes or no? Okay. So the question is asking you to look at the Roman Republic, what were its checks and balances, and then the U.S., what are its checks and balances, and then answer that question, how can the slowness of the process even be part of the health of the process? I want to pause right now and have you find in your notebook all 4 of the handouts that you need. You should be finding the handout like Olivia has that's hand drawn, and the handout that has the arrows. Those are the 2 you need that are related to the Roman Republic and the U.S. Republic. And then also you need to find a handout that says Mythology at the top. And you need to find a handout that says Lesson 66 at the top, but it's actually about the spread of ancient African civilization. All 4 of these, you need them for the objective part of the test, and you need them for discussion questions. What are you missing, Grant?
Like 2 sheets that say mythology?
Those, the one was something you read. The notes right there, that's what you need for the other thing. Do you guys see on your mythology paper how I had you draw a line right in the middle of that paper? Okay. When I show you the second discussion question, you're going to see why we drew that line. All right, anybody having trouble finding any of your handouts? Yeah, Mythology, Lesson 66, and then the 2 about the Republic. Okay, your second discussion question will be a choice, 7th and 8th graders. The choice is going to be between writing about mythology or writing about the spread of ancient African civilizations. Again, both of these are just a paragraph. This is not more complicated than that. I'm not telling you the question, but in order to answer the mythology one, you need to be familiar with the top half of that mythology handout, which is talking about the why behind Greek mythology. But if you instead answer the part about the spread of civilization in ancient Africa, it's on the Lesson 66 worksheet, and I just want to make sure that you pay attention to how the pattern of that spread is similar to the spread of Native American culture. I'm not going to tell you the question beyond that, but those hints give you the chance to focus on one or the other of those. Either the why of mythology or the similarities with the spread of Native American culture. Now, having said that, don't ignore the other one. It can still show up on your test in the objective part. But in terms of being able to write about it, that's how you decide it. Does anybody have any questions at all about the test? If you have questions, when I post those handouts, I'm going to post blanks of the handouts online. Respond to that post so I'll get a notification. If you start a new Google Classroom thing, I don't get a notification. Or you can send me an email, and I'm happy to get back to you with either one of those. Okay, can you cut the lights, Cambria? Before we get to our opening, for our opening, I have a story I want to tell you, but first, because that ties in more to the lesson, I want to start first with our review of our map for a quiz in a week. Okay, I'm going to do the review a little differently. Word bank's over here. This time, I am going to ask a question, and I want you to raise your hand, and I'm not going to ask for the answer until I see most of the hands in the class raised. And then I'm going to do a 3, 2, 1 and have you guys just say it out loud all at the same time. Okay? So we'll start. I'm going to start easy. There's a group of mountains a chain of mountains is on the west coast of the United States. These mountains are right over here. They're kind of tall, a lot taller than the mountains that are closer to us. What are the names of the mountains on the west coast of the U.S.? Raise your hand if you know. You can look at the word bank to get a thought in your head if you need it. West Coast, I see just a couple hands. I need to see more hands before I count down. 3, 2, 1.
Rockies.
Correct, it's the Rockies. Now, on closer to us, on the east coast of the United States, there's also a chain of mountains. If you've ever gone to Charlottesville and over the mountain, you've driven over them. What is the chain of mountains near us? 3, 2, 1.
Appalachians.
Very good. There's also a chain of mountains that goes down the west coast of South America. These mountains are very tall. If you stood on top, you might feel the wind going through your teeth, almost like the freshness of mint patties. If you were on these mountains, they would be called 3, 2, 1.
Andes.
The Andes Mountains and the Andes candies. Okay, there's the peninsula in Central America right here. What is that peninsula? Central American Peninsula called? Let me see hands when you think you know it. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Yes, it is the Yucatan Peninsula. Here's an easier peninsula. Right here off the west coast of the U.S. That one is called 3, 2, 1. Baja California. Good. In South America, the southern part of South America is kind of an adventure area, we'll say. We've got hiking, we've got rafting. There's a lot of really interesting stuff that you can do in this region. It is not a country, it's a region. In this adventurous region of South America, raise your hand when you know what it is. Raise your hand so I know I can call in the whole class. 3, 2, 1. Patagonia is correct. If I were to draw a line starting on the southern part of the Andes Mountains, all the way up the Andes, all the way up Central America, up through the Rocky Mountains, up through the mountains in Alaska, that line would be called the 3, 2, 1. Correct, Continental Divide. All right, let's do some rivers. In South America is a very long river that goes through a rainforest. It is in Brazil. Brazil River in a rainforest is called 3, 2, 1. The Amazon. There's another river in South America that is down closer to Argentina. It's in this lower part of the continent. 3, 2, 1. Parana, the Parana River. Now let's do an easy one in North America. There is a river that basically bisects our country. It starts in the south of our country, it goes right through the middle of the United States of America. That one is called 3, 2, 1.
Mississippi.
The Mississippi. Very good. Another river, it is probably has its origin in the Rocky Mountains, but it's on both sides of the Rockies. Both sides of the Rockies, it's named after a state, even. This particular river is 3, 2, 1. Colorado. There's a river that's in Canada. This river is named from the explorers from Europe that came over here. The river in Canada is called 3, 2, 1.
St. Lawrence.
The St. Lawrence. If you're in outer space, looking at the world, you would be able to see these enormous bodies of water. If you were to stand on the edge of these particular bodies of water, they are so vast that you would think you're at the ocean. These bodies of water are called 3, 2, 1.
Great Lakes.
The Great Lakes. There's also a river in Alaska. What is the name of the river in Alaska? I see 1 hand, 2 hands, 5 hands. All right, 3, 2, 1.
Yukon.
The Yukon River. All right, there's one more river. It's on the border of Mexico and Texas. So this is a U.S.-Mexico border river that runs right here. You see it? 3, 2, 1.
Rio Grande.
The Rio Grande. All right, now let's switch to the last section, and maybe I'll start with the easiest. there is a huge, vast, flat area in the Midwest of our country. What is this called? 3, 2, 1.
Great Plains.
The Great Plains. All right, there is also a desert in South America. See right here where the land makes this turn, right around Chile, Peru. There is a desert here. What is the name of the South American desert? 3, 2, 1.
Atacama.
It is the Atacama Desert. There's another desert that's California and the West Coast. It's right around here. This famous desert is 3, 2, 1.
Death Valley.
Death Valley, or the Mojave Desert. Close to Death Valley is a huge, enormous tourist attraction that is beautiful to go and see, and we call it 3, 2, 1.
Grand Canyon.
No, down here, that's the Grand Canyon. And in Utah, there's a body of water. Now, notice Utah is not close to the Mexico, and it is not as far up as Canada. It's about right here where this line is. So in Utah, there's a body of water. If you went and visited, you'd be visiting 3, 2, 1.
Great Salt Lake.
The Great Salt Lake, and then we are done. You guys good with all that?
Mm-hmm.
Getting there, I hope? All right, so for our start of class here, it is March. March is officially Women's History Month. And for our day in March, I want you to meet a woman in history named Fabiola. Fabiola is, I wish I could have picked somebody from ancient history, but I have a problem, which is I can't exactly find you a Christian in ancient history. Anybody know why?
Because there were no women in wait.
There were women in the Bible,
But
but why
like,
can't I find a
no,
Christian in ancient history BC? No. Come on, Grant, help me. What does BC mean? Before Christ. Were there Christians before Christ? No, it's before Christ. There weren't Christians till after there were people who were following Jesus. So to find you a Christian, as an example, I didn't want to just pull somebody you knew out of the Bible. So I'm finding a Christian from early church era, and her name is Fabiola. She was a Roman citizen. She lived in the 300s, the late 300s. And she was married twice. Her second husband, when he died, left her very wealthy. Now, it was at this point in her life that she became a Christian. And as a new Christian, her life radically changed. The perspective of her life changed. Because for the Romans, power and money were everything. That's what mattered the most in life, power and money. But as a Christian, Fabiola started to see the world differently, really upside down of the Roman value system. And Fabiola did something very unusual. She sold everything she had, and she took the money to use to help others. And what she did was she opened the first ever hospital. I know that you might be thinking, like, wait, how did people get help before then? Wealthy people always had access to doctors. That was not really the issue. What Fabiola did is that she opened a hospital that served all people. And it didn't matter if they were wealthy or if they were poor, they could receive medical care. This, by the way, the picture is the port of Rome, Italy, and this is where she opened her hospital. She didn't only pay for the hospital, she worked in the hospital. She served sick people. She took care of sick people herself. And she did this for quite a while. Later in life, she went on a big trip from Rome to Israel, where she met the famous scholar Jerome. Now, you guys can imagine in your heads, can't you, getting on a boat in Italy, Rome, Italy, and then going to Israel? Because that's kind of like what the Phoenicians did, right? When they would travel around, it's in the Mediterranean Sea, they would go like that. So she took a big trip like that, and she went and she met Jerome. Does anyone know Jerome? Are you familiar with his name? Anyone? He was a famous scholar who translated the Bible into Latin. It was the Latin Vulgate. And this is such a big deal because at this point, the world history had shifted from Greek dominance to the Roman Empire dominance. So Latin was the language. It was really important that the Bible, instead of just being in Greek, that the Bible be translated into Latin. Jerome did that. He was a scholar. Fabiola studied under Jerome and really in this time became a student of the scriptures and learned a lot about the Bible. Now, she died at some point thereafter and had a well-attended funeral. And what people said about her is that she had grasped in a way the radical nature of the gospel and giving herself to serve other people. Guys, for you, it might think like, I don't know, how do you live out the gospel in a way that's radical? It's not so different from our culture. But for her, her entire culture centered on power, on money, and what she was doing was the exact upside down version of that. Not only by flipping, like not holding on to her money, but also by using it to serve other people. So I want to use holding Fabiola in our minds as an example. I wanted to pray for you guys as we start this class, and then we're actually going to come back to Fabiola at the end of it. Dear Lord, I want to pray for these 7th and 8th graders as we're starting this lesson today. I pray that you would help them in their own way to grasp the radical nature of the gospel. There may be parts and things in culture that are just perfectly fine, but the parts and the things in our culture that are not, I pray that you would help them to be able to flip those on their head and to choose a radical way of living that is just so different from what's around them. And also, I pray that you would help them to also radically serve other people, to put others before themselves, like Fabiola did when she prioritized helping all of the sick people, no matter what their social class was. We thank you for her example. I thank you for these 7th and 8th graders and pray that you will bless them in this. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, you can turn the lights back on, Cambria. We have only 3 note cards. So, who would like to read the first note card and tell the answer to it? Read the question and the answer. Ben?
Great politicians are in the golden age of Athens, who rebuilt Athens and helped create strong patriotism among the Athenians. And it was
Pericles, yeah. Right. So you guys know about the golden age of Athens. That was part of what you're studying right now. How long did the golden age of Athens last? Do you remember if it was a time of peace or of war?
peace.
Peace.
It was like 70 years because the peace treaty.
Wait, it wasn't 70 though, but you are thinking the right thing. It was peace with whom? Who was the enemy? Sparta. So they were at peace for how long? Anybody remember? It was 30 years. So they were at peace for 30 years. Pericles was an orator. What's an orator? What does that mean? Our Latin scholars should know this. Orator. What does it mean? You can guess anyway then. Like what? Like oral.
Like a law.
Yeah, like a person who speaks. An orator is a person who's a good speaker. And he was an orator. That was his whole life, his whole job. He was a politician. Politicians give a lot of speeches. He was so good at it that he was considered to be, even though there were 10 that were supposed to be like on the same playing field, he was considered to be the best of it. He was the most famous of the orators. This is the era of direct democracy in Athens. What does it mean?
Like citizens vote for their leaders and they have like direct say in the government's affairs.
100%. This is when I remind you, these particular note cards, they're not on your test, but they will be on the next test. But this concept of direct democracy, it's on the test because we already talked about it in the last point. Citizens voting for their leaders. Like this, voting for the leaders. Did anyone go with your parent last week and go to some sort of voting poll and get a sticker? You did last Tuesday? You think so? Not a lot of you did. I don't know. Maybe the parents don't take you guys when you're so old or something like that.
I did it like a year or 2 ago.
In November, maybe?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. So last Tuesday was what is called a primary election. And a primary election is when people vote for the people who will then be the Republican candidate or the Democratic candidate for president. It was nobody except the Republican and Democrat option for president. But you're not allowed to vote on both sides of this. You don't get to pick your favorite from each side. You're supposed to pick a side and vote for one or for the other. Virginia has open primaries. Open primaries mean that every single citizen can vote in either the Republican or the Democrat primary. It's your choice. You don't have to be registered as part of that political party. Some states do not have open primaries. North Carolina, you have to register yourself as a Democrat or as a Republican or as an independent. The independents get to pick which one they vote in. The people otherwise registered as Republicans or Democrat can only vote in those primaries. Virginia is open primary, and I want to tell you guys that I vote every time I'm allowed to vote. And I am advocating this. I want you to grow up and to be like me. I want you to grow up and to vote whenever you have the opportunity to vote. Even if you think it's not going to do anything. Because the exercise of our democracy is the thing that we have to make a difference. Takes me to my little cartoon over here. This is oftentimes the way people feel around elections. Look at this guy right here. My candidate lost? I can't believe the other side won. How did that happen? We're ruined. I probably should have voted. I don't know if you guys know this, but whenever we have an election, the people who have registered to vote, you would think like, oh, like what, 80, 90% of them show up? The percentage of people who bother to go vote is so low. It is incredibly low, and it might be something to look at next time there's any kind of election. I wonder what percentage of people actually went and voted. Even if 5 million people are going to cast their vote, there's probably like 15 million, 20 million that could have, let's say, in a particular state. It is remarkable how few people make the space in their schedule to go and to vote. And yet, most of these people will all still complain about the way that stuff turned out. So I really want to advocate that you guys, when you get old enough to vote, that you remember that we are both a democracy and a republic. And the functioning part of the democracy is that you get to vote. So you should do it. There's no reason not to. In Virginia, we actually have an election every single November. only every 4 years do you get to do like a great big giant one like a president. Sometimes it's a governor's election, those feel sort of big. Sometimes it's a senator, those feel kind of big. But sometimes you go and you vote, and it's like your local sheriff and some like random secretary, and that's who you're voting for. And you know what? I vote in those too. I vote in all of them. It's kind of fun voting in those. Like I always do a little research and figure out who I want to vote for. But it's kind of fun when you vote in ones like that, because when you look at the results later, you can see like this person won by 199 votes, and I'm like, yes, my vote mattered, because there are so few people voting. So, you know, it doesn't matter. Big election, small election, go vote, because that is your democratic right to go and to use your vote to make a difference, instead of just complaining about the way things are. Okay, how did Pericles die?
Plague broke out, he died, sick and died.
Do you remember why there was a famine or a plague breaking out?
No.
What, Sadie?
Sparta was cut off the water supply.
Yeah, it was Sparta, which means that something was over. What was over? Yeah, our peace was over. They're having a war again, and Sparta was laying siege to them, and a bunch of people got sick. Come here, can you cut the lights for a minute? This is a picture of the what do you say? The plague that's happening, and this is where I'm going to pull back Fabiola from earlier to show you this. When the Athenians had their plague, you really got to see the outworking of their pagan philosophy. Because during the plague, the social kindnesses that were so typical for the sophisticated Greeks disappeared. People even stopped fearing the law because they figured they're going to die anyway. Why not go steal things? They spent all their money. They didn't leave it for their kids. We're all going to die anyway. And a lot of people died alone with no one there to care for them. What's the point? They're just going to die. Many people felt abandoned by their gods because they had gone and made sacrifices and all this, and it didn't protect them. So they figured, the gods don't even care anymore. This is in complete contrast to a Christian view of sickness and death. And very different from how Fabiola lived her life when she built that hospital. A Christian view of sickness is that there's no difference in our practice of the virtues. Still, we should be patient, we should be kind, we should care about others' desires like we care for ourselves. A Christian perspective is that there's a long-term view. There will be life after death, so how we live here matters even if we're going to die. Even if the plague's going to take me, it still matters. That's a Christian view. And finally, Christians don't see disease as punishment or abandonment. Christians don't see that. They still trust God in the middle of the sickness, in the middle of the disease. So you see how it's like kind of pulls this idea. Like, this is Greek. Fabiola was Roman, but still both the Greeks and the Romans were pagan in their kind of their fundamental view of nature, and Christians were completely different. And how you view the world changes a lot about really practical things like building hospitals. Okay, you can turn the lights back on. Does anybody have any comments or anything you want to say about anything we've talked about so far before we introduce a new project? Anything else? All right, you can put away that page, and now I'm handing you a handout. It is stapled together because you need all the pages of this. You are going to turn this project, you're going to turn these pieces of paper back into me when you turn in your project. So, Those of you at home, you need to now get out or pull up online and look at the handouts that I have also sent. All right, folks, let's look at this mythology project. You'll see from the very top of this page that it's due on April the 15th. I'm going to tell you about it and then walk you through these pages. All right. First, look underneath the pictures and let's pick up right here. And I think I'm going to start with something you already know. The Greeks and the Romans had similar but differing mythologies. Do you guys already know this? Do you know that the Romans borrowed their mythology from the Greeks? They just changed the names and changed some of the attributes. Yes? Are y'all all up on your mythology that much? Good. Okay, so prepare for the project by first completing the handout. Flip to page 2 and look at the handouts. Flip to page 2. The handout is a grid, and it has, written down the left-hand side, it has 21 Roman gods' names. You are going to write in the next column what those names are when they were the Greek gods. Like, for instance, many of you know number 1. The Roman god Jupiter is the same as the Greek god Zeus. So you would put Zeus in that next blank. And then under the domain, you put what that person is the god of. So there's lots of different things they could be the god of. It does not matter to me if you're specifically putting the Roman or the Greek function. They're going to be similar. And then finally, attribute, that's if there's any kind of symbol or animal, if there's a hammer, if there's a dog, if there's anything that kind of identifies. Where do you get this information? You might have a book at home. You might get a book from the library. You might look on the internet. It doesn't matter to me where you get the information from. It's generally available information. Okay, now flip back to the first page, please. I said you prepare for the project first by completing the handout. Look after that. And then you take the quiz, which you will turn in with your project. Flip to page 3 now. Let's look at the quiz. You're going to use the handout. You work on the handout first, and then that's going to help you with the quiz. The quiz, you are allowed to look at everything while you take the quiz. You can look at your handout. You can look at the book. Not my book. My book's not going to help you. You can look at a book. You can look at the internet. To take the quiz, you will first be matching the god or goddess with his or her domain. So you're going to take these, in this case, these Roman god names, and you're going to match them over here with the god of love, the god of wine, the god of the sea, the god of the hunt, goddess of the hunt. You'll just do the matching. Flip to the last page. On the last page, you're straight matching the Greek and Roman names. So you'll be matching up which one is Jupiter. You find Zeus over there and you write the letter G in the blank. Like that. You're actually matching here. The very bottom of it, there's only 5 of the attributes. Grapevine, thunderbolt, winged hat, sandals and hat, wheat, bow and arrow, which you will match then back to one of the gods. Once you've done the worksheet and you've sort of matched up all the Greek and Roman names, you're going to realize how much of this you remember. All right, go all the way back to the front page. Any questions so far on the worksheet or the quiz?
Wait, is it actually like quiz?
It is in the sense that it counts for 50% of your grade.
So you just do the quiz. It's like open
Yeah.
notes.
It's open note. It's an open note quiz, open note, open internet, open book, quiz.
Open internet too.
Yeah. You're going to first do the worksheet to work it all out, and then you'll do the quiz. Yes, and it's open everything. All right, now let's go to the creative. Anybody have any other questions before I go on? Let's look at the creative part. Ready? Look over here underneath the line that says you can use the internet or any book. Finally, you are going to make a mobile. A mobile is a toy that hangs over a baby to give the baby something to look at. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? The poor little baby's lying on his back, and then there's something hanging from above, and he stares at it.
It's literally like a fishing rod.
Yes, except, yes.
That's dangerous.
Your mobile is going to use toys or stuffed animals or any item you wish to create a hanging illustration of a Greek or Roman god or goddess. Please hang it with a string, not with a coat hanger, because safety, we don't really need to have coat hangers. Not because I'm going to make you hang it over a baby, but I don't want you guys poking each other in the backpack room either. This is the place I want you to pause and look at the pictures. Go up a little bit and look at the picture on the far left. That student found a sled. And I don't know what god or goddess this person was illustrating, but do you see how there's a sled and then there are strings hanging from it and there are square pieces of paper hanging off the strings? You guys following it? I'm going to tell you what to have hanging off of it, but all of them are sort of like that. And now look at the second picture. For the second, the sled, you think is Poseidon?
Because it has like shells and fish on it.
Oh yeah, probably so. The second one, it looks like the person got a stuffed dog and like a couple of other stuffed dogs and chopped the bodies off of them and sewed them together. So there's a 3-headed dog here, and then has the strings with the pieces of paper hanging off the bottom. You'll notice that the third one doesn't have a stuffed animal or a toy. It has like kind of an object. It's an object that is probably representative of something that's related to that god. And then it has the strings with the information. I think looks like stars. That one has stars hanging off of it rather than. So it might be like, yeah, Uranus or something like that. And then the fourth one, I'll have to explain that picture. You can't see the strings hanging off of it, but it was, somebody took those styrofoam things that you can get at the craft store and stuck a bunch of feathers into the styrofoam and made a bird out of it. And so that's like a crazy looking bird, and it had the strings hanging off and the attributes and things hanging below it. Yeah?
I'm pretty sure the Santos sleigh thing is actually a carrying.
Yeah, because I think it's
As
a
a
horse.
Yeah.
As a horse.
So be as creative as you want.
It's
Like
like
it doesn't really have to get it exactly that. You take Santa's sleigh and turn it into a carriage. Why not? All right, so let's look at the bottom of this, and I'm going to tell you what is it that should hang off the bottom of your mobile. You have to include these things in the hanging part. And this is all the bullet points. The Greek and the Roman name of the god. So both. A color illustration of your god, either hand-drawn or printed. You can print and color it. The domains or areas influenced by your god. So that's when you just say like god of the sea. You would just put it on the paper and you would attach it to the mobile. Flip to the back side. His or her attributes, any symbols or props. And so this is like, you might put the hammer or the dog or something like that here. His or her parents. I don't care if you use the Greek or the Roman names. If there are no parents, if this god or goddess came out of nowhere and has no parents, then you need to put no parents. That has to actually be on there. His or her siblings, Greek or Roman names, and again, you can put no siblings, but you have to actually put it on there. His or her children. If there's no children, you have to say so. His or her spouse and or lovers. If there are no spouse or lovers, you also have to say so. And then finally, cite your sources. That's where you're going to put your sources. On one of those like pieces of paper that's hanging down from your mobile, you will have your sources right there. So where'd you get your information from? Did you get it from a book? Did you get it from a website? Put it there on the mobile. Yes?
So, if, let's say you're doing Poseidon,
Mm-hmm.
would you put his son down as Percy Jackson? Is that like...
It does not matter to me. If you want to, you can. If you want to put a demigod,
Well,
it's up to you. Do a little research and then decide what you want. Yes?
Is there specific style we have to do our block?
There's not. Now, when you turn in this project, you are going to turn in this entire packet of paper, and now you can see why. Your rubric is on here. Look at how the grading is. 6 points for putting the Roman and the Greek name down. 3 for each. 3 for the Roman, 3 for the Greek. 5 points for attributes. 5 points for domain. 5 points for a color picture. 2 points for writing the parents. 2 points, or that there are no parents. 2 points for siblings, 2 points for children, 2 points for the spouse lover. You get 3 points for citing your sources. You get 3 points for turning this piece of paper in. You get 5 points for hanging your mobile on a piece of string so that it works. And 10 points for creativity. And you get 50 points for having done the worksheet quiz. That's the packet right here, which equals 100 total. All right, by next Monday, you have to claim who you're going to do, but I think some of you have an idea in mind, and we have a problem, which is there will be no duplicates in this classroom.
I'll fight him for it.
So
I'll fight him.
how we're going to do that is we're going to have a fight this way. I am going to post on Google Classroom at a pre-arranged time. I'm going to make a post in the Google Class stream. And you will go and you will write on there who you want to have as your god or goddess. Write the Greek and the Roman name so no one gets confused. And it's if somebody else has already written it ahead of you, you can't take it. So you can scan through whoever is ahead of you. But if you write something, whoever posts higher on this particular post gets that one. It's a race to claim who you want. But you don't get to do it today.
Good.
I'm going to have a designated, agreed upon time, which we're about to vote on, for when this is going to get posted. Now, we can agree that it's posted, like this, you have to do this by next Monday. But let's agree on when we should post it. So let me give you some options. We could agree that I'm going to post it at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning on a Tuesday, at noon on Tuesday, or we could agree that I'm not going to post it until during this class on Wednesday, so that it's like after class eventually you can get it. I know you guys go home at different times, so that might be harder for some of you. All right, so let's have a vote. Ready? A close eye vote. Close eye vote. Close eye vote. You have another suggestion?
I veto Wednesday.
You veto Wednesday. All right, close your eyes. You veto Wednesday by using your direct democracy vote to vote for what you want. All right, raise your hand if you would prefer 10 o'clock on Tuesday morning. Hands down. Raise your hand if you would prefer noon on Tuesday. Hands down. Raise your hand if you would prefer Wednesday during class. All right, open your eyes. The answer is going to be 10 a.m. on Tuesday. And by the way, if you're watching the video, it's 10 a.m. on Tuesday for the other classes too. That's what everyone voted for. So we are going to, I'm going to write the post today. I will schedule it to show up at 10 o'clock tomorrow, which means that you are not waiting for me to push a button. It will appear, because technology will make it appear, at 10 o'clock on Tuesday. Does anybody have any other questions or anything that you need clarity on? Okay. The project, you sort of have a while to do it, but it's better to get some of this preliminary stuff done ahead of time, so you can work on your creative stuff.